Section 33 of The Dream of the Red Chamber, Book 1. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Dream of the Red Chamber, Book 1, by Cao Xueqin. Translated by Henry Bancroft Jolly. Chapter 15, Part 2. But leaving aside the old nun, who kept lady Feng company, we will now return to the two lads Pao-yü and Qin-chung. They were up to their pranks in the main building of the convent, when seeing Zhi-Neng come over. "Here's Neng-er," Pao-yü exclaimed with a smile. "Why notice a creature like her?" remarked Qin-chung, to which Pao-yü rejoined laughingly, "Don't be sly! Why then did you the other day, when you were in the old lady's rooms, and there was not a soul present, hold her in your arms? And do you want to fool me now?" "There was nothing of the kind," observed Qin-chung, smiling. "Whether there was or not," replied Pao-yü, "doesn't concern me. But if you will stop her and tell her to pour a cup of tea and bring it to me to drink, I'll then keep hands off." "This is indeed very strange," Qin-chung answered laughing. "Do you fear that if you told her to pour you one, that she wouldn't? And what need is there that I should tell her?" "If I ask her," Pao-yü observed, "to pour it, she wouldn't be as ready as she would were you to tell her about it." Qin-chung had no help but to speak. "Neng-er," he said, "bring a cup of tea." This Neng-er had, since her youth, been in and out of the Jung mansion, so that there was no one that she did not know; and she had also, time after time, romped and laughed with Pao-yü and Qin-chung. Being now grown up, she gradually came to know the import of love, and she readily took a fancy to Qin-chung, who was an amorous being. Qin-chung too returned her affection on account of her good looks; and, although he and she had not had any very affectionate tête-à-tête, they had, however, long ago come to understand each other's feelings and wishes. Zhi-Neng walked away, and returned after having poured the tea. "Give it to me!" Qin-chung cried out smirkingly; while Pao-yü likewise shouted, "Give it to me!" Zhi-Neng compressed her lips and sneeringly rejoined, "Are you going to have a fight even over a cup of tea? Is it forsooth likely that there's honey in my hand?" Pao-yü was the first to grasp and take over the cup, but while drinking it, he was about to make some inquiry, when he caught sight of Chih-shan, who came and called Zhi-Neng away to go and lay the plates with fruit on the table. Not much time elapsed before she came round to request the two lads to go and have tea and refreshments. But would they eat such things as were laid before them? They simply sat for a while and came out again and resumed their play. Lady Feng, too, stayed for a few moments, and then returned, with the old nun as her escort, into the unsullied rooms to lie down. By this time, all the matrons and married women discovered that there was nothing else to be done, and they dispersed in succession, retiring each to rest. There only remained in attendance several young girls who enjoyed her confidence; and the old nun speedily availed herself of the opportunity to speak. "I've got something," she said, "about which I mean to go to your mansion to beg of Madame Wang, but I'll first request you, my lady, to tell me how to set to work." "What's it?" ascertained lady Feng. "Oh, mi to fu!" exclaimed the old nun, "it's this. In days gone by, I first lived in the Ch'ang-an district. When I became a nun and entered the monastery of excellent merit, there lived, at that time, a subscriber, Chang by surname, a very wealthy man. He had a daughter, whose infant name was Chin-Ge. The whole family came in the course of that year to the convent I was in, to offer incense, and, as luck would have it, they met Li Ya-nei, a brother of a secondary wife of the prefect of the Ch'ang-an prefecture. This Li Ya-nei fell in love at first sight with her, and would wed Chin-Ge as his wife. He sent go-betweens to ask her in marriage, but, contrary to his expectations, Chin-Ge had already received the engagement presents of the son of the ex-major of the Ch'ang-an prefecture. The Chang family, on the other hand, were afraid that if they withdrew from the match, the major would not give up his claim, and they therefore replied that she was already promised to another. But who would have thought it, this Mr. Li was seriously bent upon marrying the young lady; but while the Chang family were at a loss what plan to devise, and both parties were in a dilemma, the family of the Major came unexpectedly to hear of the news; and without even looking thoroughly into the matter, they there and then had recourse to insult and abuse. "Is a girl," they insinuated, "to be promised to the sons of several families?" And obstinately refusing to allow the restitution of the betrothal presents, they at once had recourse to litigation and brought an action against the girl's people. That family was at their wits' end, and had no alternative but to find some one to go to the capital to obtain means of assistance; and, losing all patience, they insisted upon the return of the presents. "I believe that the present commander of the troops at Ch'ang'an, Mr. Yün, is on friendly terms with your honourable family, and could one solicit Madame Wang to put in a word with Mr. Chia Cheng to send a letter and ask Mr. Yün to speak to that major, I have no fear that he will not agree. Should your ladyship be willing to take action, the Chang family are even ready to present all they have, though it may entail the ruin of their estate." "This affair is, it's true, of no great moment," lady Feng replied smiling, after hearing this appeal; "but the only thing is that Madame Wang does no longer attend to matters of this nature." "If madame doesn't heed them," suggested the old nun, "you, my lady, can safely assume the direction." "I'm neither in need of any money to spend," added lady Feng with a smirk, "nor do I undertake such matters." These words did not escape Ching Hsu's ear; they scattered to the winds her vain hopes. After a minute or so, she heaved a sigh. "What you say may be true enough," she remarked, "but the Chang family are also aware that I mean to come and make my appeal to your mansion; and were you now not to manage this affair, the Chang family having no idea that the lack of time prevents any steps being taken, and that no importance is attached to their presence, it will appear, on the contrary, as if there were not even this little particle of skill in your household." At these words lady Feng felt at once inspirited. "You've known of old," she added, "that I've never had any faith in anything concerning retribution in the court of judgment in the unseen or in hell; and that whatever I say that I shall do, that I do. Tell them, therefore, to bring 3,000 taels, and I shall then remedy this grievance of theirs." The old nun upon hearing this remark was so exceedingly delighted that she precipitately exclaimed, "They've got it! They've got it! There will be no difficulty about it." "I'm not," lady Feng went on to add, "like those people who afford help and render assistance with an eye to money. These 3,000 taels will be exclusively devoted for the travelling expenses of those youths, who will be sent to deliver messages and for them to make a few cash for their trouble; but as for me, I don't want even so much as a cash. In fact, I am able at this very moment to produce as much as 30,000 taels." The old nun assented with alacrity, and said by way of reply, "If that be so, my lady, do display your charitable bounty at once to morrow and bring things to an end." "Just see," remarked lady Feng, "how hard pressed I am; which place can do without me? But since I've given you my word, I shall, needless to say, speedily bring the matter to a close." "A small trifle like this," hinted the old nun, "would, if placed in the hands of any one else, flurry her to such an extent that she would be quite at a loss what to do; but in your hands, my lady, even if much more were superadded, it wouldn't require as much exertion as a wave of your hand. But the proverb well says that those who are able have much to do; for Madame Wang, seeing that your ladyship manage all concerns, whether large or small, properly, has still more shoved the burden of everything on your shoulders, my lady; but you should, it's but right, also take good care of your precious health." This string of flattery pleased lady Feng more and more, so that heedless of fatigue, she went on to chat with still greater zest. But, thing unthought of, Ch'in Chung availed himself of the darkness, as well as of the absence of any one about, to come in quest of Chih Neng. As soon as he reached the room at the back, he spied Chih Neng all alone inside washing the teacups, and Ch'ing Chung forthwith seized her in his arms and implanted kisses on her cheek. Chih Neng got in a dreadful state, and stamping her feet, cried, "What are you up to?" And she was just on the point of shouting out, when Ch'ing Chung rejoined, "My dear girl, I'm nearly dead from impatience, and if you don't again today accept my advances, I shall this very moment die on this spot." "What you are bent upon," added Chih Neng, "can't be effected, not unless you wait until I've left this den and part company from these people, when it will be safe enough." "This is of course easy enough," remonstrated Ch'ing Chung, "but the distant water cannot extinguish the close fire." As he spoke, with one puff, he put out the light, plunging the whole room in pitch darkness, and seizing Chih Neng, he pushed her on to the stove couch and started a violent love affair. Chih Neng could not, though she strained every nerve, escape his importunities, nor could she very well shout, so that she felt compelled to humour him. But while he was in the midst of his ecstatic joy, they perceived a person walk in, who pressed both of them down, without uttering even so much as a sound, and plunged them both in such a fright that their very souls flew away, and their spirits wandered from their bodies. And it was after the third party had burst out laughing with a spurting sound that they eventually became aware that it was Pao-yü. When, springing to his feet impetuously, Ch'ing Chung exclaimed, full of resentment, "What's this that you're up to?" "If you get your monkey up," retorted Pao-yü, "why, then let you and I start bawling out," which so abashed Chih Neng that she availed herself of the gloomy light to make her escape, while Pao-yü had dragged Ch'ing Chung out of the room and asked, "Now then, do you still want to play the bully?" "My dear fellow," pleaded Ch'ing Chung smilingly, "whatever you do, don't shout out and let every one know. And all you want I'll agree to." "We needn't argue just now," Pao-yü observed with a grin. "Wait a while, and when all have gone to sleep, we can minutely settle accounts together." Soon it was time to ease their clothes and go to bed, and lady Feng occupied the inner room, Ch'ing Chung and Pao-yü the outer, while the whole ground was covered with matrons of the household, who had spread their bedding and sat watching. As lady Feng entertained fears that the jade of spiritual perception might be lost, she waited until Pao-yü fell asleep, when having directed a servant to bring it to her, she placed it under the side of her own pillow. What accounts Pao-yü settled with Ch'ing Chung cannot be ascertained, and as in the absence of any positive proof what is known is based upon surmises, we shall not venture to place it on record. Nothing worth noticing occurred the whole night, but the next day, as soon as the morning dawned, dowager lady Chia and madame Wang promptly dispatched servants to come and see how Pao-yü was getting on, and to tell him likewise to put on 2 pieces of extra clothing, and that if there was nothing to be done, it would be better for him to go back. But was it likely that Pao-yü would be willing to go back? Besides, Ch'ing Chung, in his inordinate passion for Chih Neng, instigated Pao-yü to entreat lady Feng to remain another day. Lady Feng pondered in her own mind that, although the most important matters connected with the funeral ceremonies had been settled satisfactorily, there were still a few minor details, for which no provision had been made; so that, could she avail herself of this excuse to remain another day, would she not win from Chia Chen a greater degree of approbation? In the second place, would she not be able further to bring Ching Hsü's business to an issue? And, in the third place, to humour Pao-yü's wish? In view of these 3 advantages which would accrue, "All that I had to do, I have done," he readily signified to Pao-yü, "and if you be bent upon running about in here, you'll unavoidably place me in still greater trouble, so that we must for certain start homewards to morrow." "My dear cousin, my own dear cousin," urgently entreated Pao-yü, when he heard these words, "let's stay only this one day, and to morrow we can go back without fail." They actually spent another night there, and lady Feng availed herself of their stay to give directions that the case which had been entrusted to her the previous day by the old nun should be secretly communicated to Lai Wang Erh. Lai Wang's mind grasped the import of all that was said to him, and, having entered the city with all dispatch, he went in search of the gentleman, who acted as secretary in Mr. Yün's office, pretending that he had been directed by Mr. Chia Lien to come and ask him to write a letter and to send it that very night to the Ch'ang-an magistrate. The distance amounted to no more than 100 li, so that in the space of 2 days everything was brought to a satisfactory settlement. The general, whose name was Yün光, had been for a long time under obligations to the Chia family, so that he naturally could not refuse his co-operation in such small trifles. When he had handed his reply, Wang Erh started on his way back, where we shall leave him and return to lady Feng. Having spent another day, she on the morrow took leave of the old nun, whom she advised to come to the mansion after the expiry of 3 days to fetch a reply. Qing Chung and Zhi Neng could not by any means brook the separation, and they secretly agreed to a clandestine assignation, but to these details we need not allude with any minuteness. Sufficient to say that they had no alternative but to bear the anguish and to part. Lady Feng crossed over again to the Temple of the Iron Fence, and ascertained how things were progressing. But as Pao Chu was obstinate in her refusal to return home, Chia Chen found himself under the necessity of selecting a few servants to act as her companions. But the reader must listen to what is said in the next chapter by way of explanation. End of section 33. Recording by Li Jing.